This is a follow-up. If you look at the second slide, what we are saying that it is a follow-up from what we started in July, and now in March 2016, hopefully this will continue. I do not think these are 1 month, 1 year or 10-year problems. These are more than 10-year problems. So we need to understand that these are long-term problems, but that doesn't mean that we have to wait for about 10 years. We have to do few things that we can see that something is happening. And then as we go along, we monitor, we implement, we adapt, and that is the particular model that I will propose, and you will see really in a few minutes what that means. So what does it mean really to be a water diplomat? So I put a very theoretical, I would say that even academic description that we have been developing over the last 5 years, and Mali was also very instrumental when he visited us at Tafsir in formulating some of these ideas. So what it means that this is an interdisciplinary professional who contributes to the resolution of complex water problems. And you have heard this about complex problem, and we'll talk about this complexity. Complex does not mean complex. Everything is complex. But we have very particular definition of what we mean by complex. Then it includes multiple stakeholders with conflicting and divergent needs. Meaning that it is not against the farmer versus ecosystem, ecosystem versus the fish, fish versus the flamingo. We can make those fights. When we start fighting around those issues, what we call it, these are fight based on positions. It's not interested. I'm not really sure what the interests of the farmers are. Unless I understand what the interests and what the positions are, we get into fight. So the first thing then, we need to understand really what each of us wants, and then why we want this. Then we need to find out what are the sources of uncertainty. So right now, if I ask you the question, really what I have been seeing this morning, that there is a problem with water there. It won't be a lake because it used to be, if you look at one slide that I saw, 1913, the water level was below 1274 meters. In agriculture, we did not have climate change. Why did it happen? It happened. So that's a historical fact. So we need to understand that there are some natural variability that may still be within this variability. Yes, over the last 20 years, we have increased the cultivation area from 300,000 to 500,000 hectares. That will need more water. Understood that part. But where is the key source of uncertainty is very important to understand. That is what water diplomacy framework suggests, that look, find out what the key source of uncertainty is. Then, once you have that, what we want to facilitate a sustainable water solution, a problem solving with mutual gains. Meaning that it is not really the farmers will benefit, ecosystem will suffer, or vice versa. Is it possible to find out a solution that will benefit both? That is where we are basically very different than many of the existing approaches. We're not talking about approaches that exist right now. What can I think of that doesn't exist right now? What that is not clear, and I'm not want to basically even propose one because I know very little. 10 years, this is a problem going on for the last 20 years. There are 98 projects being implemented. So many things are being done. The question is that how do you synthesize some of these things and come to a place where many of these problems at least can be partly addressed. I'm not saying fully addressed. And we will not even venture into saying that I will give you or we can give solutions. For complex problems, there is no solution. So let's first admit that. What is there is resolution of problems so that we can address the problems. It is not as severe as it was before. So that is a very important distinction. When I have a fever, I can get a Tylenol, that's what we use in the US, paracetamol, that will solve my fever problem. So fever is a problem that can be addressed. If I have a broken leg, it can be addressed by a surgeon by fixing my leg. But if I have diabetes, it's not fixable right now. Right now, diabetes needs to be managed. So we need to make a distinction what is curable and what is manageable. Urmia leg may not be a curable problem. It may be a manageable problem. And that distinction is very fundamental. Because unless we understand that distinction, really, it will be very difficult. What water diplomacy does, really, it provides that type of mutual gain solution that make a distinction between something that can be solved and that something can be managed. Right now, even if you look at there are solutions to Urmia lake, then I say how? It is very difficult because there are too many things going on. So let's make it simpler. In simple way, really, what it does, really, water diplomacy facilitates the process of resolving water conflicts. I'm very careful in writing resolving, not solving. Resolving water conflicts by finding creative, sustainable option that improve mutual gains. Meaning the gain for the farmer should not be at the cost of the ecosystem. It can be both. The question then is how? That is the question. So that question, to motivate them, I have 17 camels. I have 17 camels, and what I want to do really, when I die, I want you to distribute amongst you. So I'll tell you how to do this. The eldest son takes the most, he takes half. The second son takes a third, and the third son takes the ninth. This is fine. Father was very generous because he was given, because who was born first, so they was given a little bit more. That is the tradition in the Middle East, so that was fine. So father died, everybody was unhappy. Then the time came that, okay, now let's find out what to do with the camel. So what to do with the camel really, so this is the 17th camel. Now, father said, the sons got together, they said, let's do it. When they started doing this, they got into trouble. The trouble they got into this, they have 17 camel, now you cannot divide it by 9, or cannot divide it by half, because it becomes 8.5. If I divide by 9, it becomes even more problematic. So what did they do? So they got very puzzled. So they said, now, we have to respect our father, because he told us to make it half, third, and then 9. Now we have 17, how do we do this? So there were a lot of discussion going on, a lot of negotiation going on, but they cannot come to any consensus. Then they thought, maybe if you want to be really, I am from engineering, so I have to give an engineering solution. The brothers also got that, let's find a solution, let's kill all of them and distribute the meat. That can be done. Because then you can do it easily, because you have meat cannot be basically, now you can take, you get that much. Then they thought, maybe that was not my father's intention, because he did not want the camel to be killed and then just distribute the meat. Then they got very puzzled, and then there were a lot of fighting going on amongst brothers. The nephews and nieces were basically fighting. They were not talking. Serious problem. Then they found out that there was a wise lady next village. They said, maybe we should visit the wise lady and see what she has to say. So they went to her. They said, look, we had this problem. Then my father asked us to do this division, and we simply cannot do it. So lady said, no, this is a very difficult problem, and let me think about it. Why don't you come tomorrow morning? So tomorrow morning they came. So lady said, look, I think this is really a complex problem. I don't have a solution. But I do have an idea. The idea is that I have a camel, I'll give it to you. So take it and then do whatever you can, because I cannot solve your problem, so I just give it to you. So they gave it to the camel, to the brothers, and brothers now have 18 camel. So they're coming back home. They said, 18 camel now, if I divide by half, 9. That's good. So let's do that. So that was given. So 9 was given to older brother. Then you do third, another 6, and they do another 9, another 2. They find, okay, fine. I still have 1 camel left. So what happened? So this is what I want you to think about this. They say, wow, so we divided it fine, and now we still have 1 camel left. I think we should give it back to the lady. So they went back and gave it to the lady. So the challenge is this 18th camel really did not exist. And they did not even use it. So the problem for us really, what is that 18th camel for Urmia Lake? That is what we're looking for. We're looking for a solution that is creative, that it doesn't exist. And that does not even violate anything that we want to do. And this is not a new story. If you go back to, so I was told that this was done by Omar. I don't know whether it was Omar, but I could find even earlier sources than that. So it could be at least 3,000 years old. So this is a story that people have done really almost 3,000 years ago in Middle East. So my challenge, I think, and our challenge is right now, is to find out these creative options which does not exist. So the challenge for us really for today, and even for few months or even few years to come, what is the 18th camel for Urmia Lake? Yes, we have 98 projects, we have many solutions, but those solutions are fragmented. We need to find out solutions, those are creative like this 18th camel. So with this we will start. So this is where we are. Now if you look at really this particular diagram, I borrowed it from Dr. Tabriz, is there is a pretty good agreement that the lake level has gone by about 7.39 meters. It used to be about 18 meters. Now if you look at it, there are also a lot of things going on. Actually there is only 2 meters left. So what happened? So what happened really, then there is a lot of deposition also going on. So you see, particularly although we are saying that there is a decrease of 7.39 meter, actually it has reduced by 14 meter. So depending on really how you look at the problem could be quite messy. Really, are you measuring the mean sea level, or are you measuring the deposition of the salt, or are you measuring the water depth? It's not clear. So that means science is not really the answer. Science is a way to answering these questions. We need to even first be careful in how I frame the question. If we do that, then we have some way to go get around this. And that is what I hope really we will try to do over the next few hours and maybe in longer term. So to do that really, so what I am proposing today really, so we started with this water diplomacy, what can it do to enable? Enable is a very important word here. So enable meaning that what can we do so that what we have right now, it's not that if I have unlimited resources, I can solve any problem that I want. Resources are limited. We'll have many constants that also exist. Given those resource limitations, given those constants, what can we do? That is where essentially the idea of pragmatic approach comes in. So pragmatism is not really that I want to solve any problem at the cost of anything. No. Pragmatism must be built in some set of principles. What those principles are, really, so the way I think about this problem is that there are 3 things that are important. One is the values, interests, and tools. The way we do this really, usually how we think about this problem is in terms of values really. Why do I want to really restore the Urmia lake? That is a question really that is value-based. It has nothing to do with science or technology. One person may argue that I want to restore this because this has been there for generations and I have enjoyed it, my grandparents enjoyed it, I want to keep it for my grandchildren. Fine. Or I want to do it really for the ecosystem. Or I want to do it for tourism. These are very different questions. And this has no really clear answer in which one is right or wrong. There is no right or wrong answer. So these are questions which are based on the values that we want to promote. Then I have to look at what my interests are. Meaning that for each of these values you have a particular interest. You may have an economic interest, you may have a sustainability interest, you may have an interest in equity. These are different types of interests. Then we have tools. Tools are the one that I have an optimization tool, I have a computer model that can tell me which one is better. Should I really put water for irrigation versus to fish versus the industry? Or how do I trade them? Like what Kabe was telling that, how do you trade between agriculture versus environment? Trading is one way of doing this. It doesn't have to be trading. What I suggested here is that we need 18 camel. 18 camel is not trading. So we need to make a distinction. Trading, the way we understand this, is in terms of economic values. Economics is only one way to price things up. It's not the only way. So we need to understand that what is the difference between economic valuation versus non-monetary. He was also suggesting that should we do monetary versus non-monetary. So we need to look at multiple options, but that is some of the tools that we need. But before we understand the tools, I need to understand really what am I trying to optimize. Is it really the health of the ecosystem that is more important, or is it really the livelihood of the farmers? These are very different questions with very different outcomes, and I can come up with very elegant scientific solutions with very interesting optimization tools to give you an answer. But that answer may not be at all applicable to the farmer. They may not care, or the government may not care. So we need to understand really what everybody cares and then find out the tools. So before we decide on what tools to use, we need to understand why am I using those tools. So this is the why question. Then I go back, how I do this. Most of the times we are hung up on how we do this. And I would argue that whatever studies that I have seen in Urmia Lake, most of the things are focused on this, how should we do this. We have a problem, this is a crisis, let's do something about it. But then we have never asked the question, really, why am I doing this? So unless you ask the question, why am I doing this, how is really becoming relevant? Then we say that people are not implementing my solutions. Of course they are not interested in the solution you suggested. They have very different problems. If I now tell that, okay, I want to reduce 40% water need for irrigation. Yes, I think it is a very good engineering solution. Can it be done? Very difficult. Because Unless I can provide alternative sources of income or livelihood to the farmer, I just simply cannot implement that I will cut the water demand in 40%. It's not going to happen, no matter how hard we try. So the question then becomes, unless I can come up with alternative solutions, I just cannot provide solutions. There are a lot of possible solutions, but all of them are not actionable. We need to figure out which are actionable and why, given the system that I have. If you look at the current understanding of this problem, this is what you see. It's a mess. Basically, everything is connected with everything else. I can say that the fish is connected with the farmer, farmer is connected with the grapes. Grape was not basically being used right now because of after the revolution, grape market has gone down. So what is the problem? And there is simply no way really to understand that problem really in a way that is very well defined. That is where the complexity comes in. The complexity is that the problems are very interdependent. So when we say complex problems, we are not talking about any other problem. Where we're saying that there are many, many things which are important. That does not mean that all of them are important. So this is what the fundamental distinction is. Right now, if I ask you, each of you, you will have a very different description of what the problem of Urmia Lake is. And I'm sure many of them will be very different, and some of them will also overlap. But not all of them are equally important. So I give an example to my PhD student that look, to get a PhD, few things have to happen. The number one thing, of course, you have to be alive. That's given. So if you're not alive, how can you do this? But that's not very critical. Just because you're alive, you will not get a PhD. At least you have to have a bachelor's. So that is minimum. I cannot just go and basically from primary school and go to PhD. It will not happen. So I need a minimum condition. That minimum condition is that I need to have a bachelor's. Then also it will not guarantee. Because I need to have an advisor, I need to have a topic, I need to have a university, then it will happen. So that means what are the minimum set of conditions that I need to describe a particular problem so that I can start approaching this problem. So what we do really in water diplomacy framework, we say that let's define the context. The context is defined by who decides, water for whom and how. So these are the very fundamental three questions we ask. Once I ask those questions, then I decide who are the proper stakeholders are. Then find out what is the diagnosis of the problem. Where are the constraints? So these are very generic. So that means if you go to these three steps, you should be able to diagnose what the problem is. That diagnosis now has to be very different for a fever versus your diabetes. So one is a curable, another is a manageable. So the problem, some of the problems may not be curable, can only be managed. So we need to figure out which one is the problem, then only I can prescribe solutions. Once I have done that, then I go and implement those interventions. Implementing interventions meaning that given the constraint that I have, given the resources that I have, what can I do? Once I have done that, then I keep going in circles. So meaning that then I do certain things, then I make mistakes. Because here we have to be extremely humble, because we just simply do not know what the future looks like. So as a result, future will be very different than what we know right now. So I gave an example, 1913, I still have 1274 meters, no climate change, no irrigation problems, still water level was below the current level. In 100 years now, things have changed. There are more people in the Urmia Lake, there are more irrigable land, there is climate change, it's a very different problem. So this problem may again change in another 20 years. Last 2 months, we had a lot of rainfall, and I will argue that that rainfall has to do something to do with El Nino. This year in Boston, we have probably the warmest winter. Last year, Mahdi was there, we had 116 inches of snow. This year, we still did not even have 40 inches. These things can happen, these are real. And these are somehow linked also to El Nino signals. So that means now we have more rainfall. Yesterday I was told when we visited Urmia Lake, they have more water now 2 months ago. Why? Because you have more rainfall. Why you have more rainfall? Because you have El Nino. So these are all linked. Doesn't mean the next year there will be another El Nino, it may not. So that means that I may have drought next year again. So the question then, the solution that I am proposing right now, that solution needs to be adaptive also. Once you do that, this is what we did last time. I just skip this. This is what some of the suggestions we made in Boston. Some of these things are probably relevant also. Like some of the suggestions we said that maybe you can bring in a creative farmer collaborative to seek mutual gains options. But for that to happen, we need to identify what those farmers are. At that time, there was also some idea about allocating some rental money to farmer collaborative, because they are putting rental money for your land so that All right, so I was already told that I am running late, so I will go a little bit quickly. So this is what I think we are. Now, if you look at it, if you want to take any action on any water management problem, this has been probably done. A problem was identified, and then a space was created where this idea of Urmia Lake restoration program was done. Now, decision has been made by the elected officials that they want to create this restoration program, $700 million program over next 10 years. We are somewhere here right now. This is where this collaborative adaptive management has to come. Meaning that now we can intervene. Look, given that there is a plan exists, we cannot start fighting the plan because it's already there. We could have made it better by many, many different ways, but that is basically behind the scene right now. Water has gone under the bridge. We need to figure out, given the situation that we are in, what can we do? So we are in this space right now. In this space, then what are the implementation phases? What are the interventions that we can do? So to do that, really what I see, really, there are a lot of possible solutions. But not all possible solutions are actionable. Some of them are actionable. What will control that actionability is that you have some constraints, you have a community, and you have to be extremely creative to find out that 18 come up. If you can do this, then we have a subset of solutions. Those subset of solutions, even from these 98 projects, really, we want to find out what those subset of solutions, those are actionable. Not all of them, all possible solutions does not lead to actionable solutions. The brilliance of the group, I think, when we have this roundtable, is to figure out really, from that very large space of possible solution, what are the actionable solutions right now that we can propose. If we do that, then we have something basically that can address this idea of really how to work on this restoration period, and then to go where we want to go. So this is something that is already in the making. What our challenge is to, given that that exists, given that there is a $700 million going to be spent over the next 10 years, what can we do really, finding out this 18th camel in multiple ways, and that can impact the actual implementation plan of this restoration. And these are the sets of solutions that were suggested. So I have just picked few. If you look at this, some of these are very good. There are some very strong, hardcore solutions that we will transfer water from different rivers. In short term may be possible, but not in a long-term solution. I can use groundwater, I can use different way of irrigation, I can use different crops. These are different suggestions. Even I think Madhi was suggesting that there are 5 different ways he found out from the stakeholders what they can do. But not all of them will be equally applicable. The challenge is to find out which is applicable right now in a short term and in a long term. And then you've also looked at basically the idea that East Azerbaijan Water Regional Company put together all these 6 different strategies that they wanted to implement. And these are all very good strategies. But not all strategies can be simultaneously implemented. The challenge is really how do I basically phase them in a way that shows me some progress. If we can do this, then we have some way around them. So now to give some good news. So it's not that basically Urmia Lake is a dead story. This is a story also from the RLC. This was almost by all people in the scientific community decided that it's a terminal case is dead. But it has been totally reversed by accurate intervention. So that means what has been done in RLC can also be done in the Urmia Lake, but not by what they have done there, by doing something else that we can do here. The other one is in California. You know, California is going through serious drought. Their lack of water is about 6 million acre-feet. If you look at basically some of the suggestions that I made, you can still make 14 million acre-feet of water. You need just 6. There is a deficit of 6 million acre-feet per year. We are saying that you can do 14. If you look at Urmia Lake, what I found out that you need about 3 billion cubic meter of water, because that is what the amount of water is evaporating. So I need at least 3 billion input to the system. How do I create this 3 billion input? Right now there is about 5 billion. But out of this 5 billion, most of it is used for irrigation. So there are a lot of things that can be used there, starting from smart irrigation to different crop pattern irrigation, all kinds of things. But the challenge is not that. First, we need to figure out really what do I have to save. What amount of saving will lead me to at least gradual restoration of the lake. What I said that is, look, I need only 3 billion because that is the evaporation loss. That will be lost no matter what. So that means that is the minimum I have to guarantee. So how do I do this now? Now I have 5 billion. Out of this 5 billion, almost all of it is used by irrigation. So then what do I do? So do I stop basically irrigation at all? Or do I take 40% off? These are all possible solutions. I do not think these are actionable. Not all of them are. The question then becomes really what are actionable solutions are. If you can come up with one or two actionable solutions and demonstrate that how it can be done, then we have gone probably a little bit far. And that is where I think I will stop because I'm already maybe way out of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shafi, for your presentation and your keynotes. I hope by means of these workshops and roundtable discussion, we can find 18 Canada. Now, we are going to start a roundtable discussion. And before I start our roundtable discussion, I'm going to ask everyone to speak or ask a question. Please introduce yourself, your affiliation, and your country you are coming from. Thank you very much. I'm going to invite Professor Ben Habib and Professor Oh yeah, thank you very much. To start our roundtable discussion. Thank you.
I would like, first of all, to thank Tabriz University for inviting me for this opportunity, which I'm learning a lot from. And I'm also making correlation with some situations similar to this happening in my country by chance. I am being Jordanian and we have something similar there. So I think the presentation today, this morning, were based on extensive studies and cooperation between international experts as well. And now maybe the stage is at implementing them and finding the best way of implementation. This is an important problem affecting a lot of people in the basin of this region. And I think we identify the problems, we are looking for solutions. But I will concentrate on something which is I couldn't find so far presented, which are opportunities of the situation of the Urmia Lake is drying up. But for that one needs a little bit more information. For instance, we visited the causeway yesterday evening, afternoon, and we saw how the water passage is possibly creating some problems. But I would ask now, was there an environmental assessment study for the construction of the causeway? And did it expect and find some solutions? Usually these projects have assessment, environmental assessment components. So the solutions are going to be very expensive, and there's industry, there's farmers, and there are also urban users of the basin water. And for my thinking, the farmer is the weakest component of all of this. Because if you want to improve irrigation systems and all these things, that's going to be very expensive to start from open channel irrigation, to drip irrigation, going to be very expensive. And it will need a lot of regulations and management. Now let me go back to the opportunities I saw in the Urmia Lake case. But I asked for a simple question to know and to make more explanation about this, which is the composition, the salt composition of the sea. And particularly, I'm interested in the sodium, magnesium, and potassium concentration. These are chlorides of sodium, magnesium, and potassium. Once these are defined, then one can go to look for this opportunity, which is extracting potash from the water. And now the Urmia salinity is close to the Dead Sea salinity, which is in Jordan. Dead Sea salinity is 1.24. You have 250 grams of salt per liter. And in Urmia, you say you have 200 grams of salts in the water.
No, more than.
It can be a little bit more.
More than 30 grams.
30? I don't think.
More than 30.
30.
30.
But your specific density of the water, how much is it? Specific density.
I know there is more than 100 grams per liter.
Yeah, that's about saturation level of some salts, you know. The question here is that this lake has a lot of purposes. We cannot neglect some of them, especially at the lake side, the environmental prospects and obligations of the government for the Ramsar, because they are signatory of the Ramsar and they have to provide for the migratory birds needed natural sites. But this is still possible to arrange while you are also developing some industries based on the constituents of the sea. In Jordan, we have a potash company that extracts potash from the Dead Sea. They produced last year 3 million tons of potash at a value of about $1 billion. The Israelis on the other side, about 400 meters to the west, they produce maybe 5 billion. Downstream industries. In Jordan, we produce potash and we also produce magnesium. Magnesia is a very important component of certain high temperature fire boilers. So in Jordan we produce potash. Salt is byproduct which has no value, but it's processed and it's used. Main product is potash, and then it is magnesia. Magnesia is very expensive, and there are only specialized companies who need it. So your consumers are there, but you are also competitors, Jordan and Israel.
But Pino, just as a chairman of the session, we need your assessment for the last 4 talks, and we will come back to you for the opportunities, you know. Just we need the assessment because we want to start the roundtable discussion. I will be happy.
Okay, I will do that. Okay.
Because of your...
But I thought my time is short and I will just talk that.
Thank you so much.
So I think from this point I will go back to the agricultural component which they mentioned, that they want to divert from the technology of irrigation to more efficient one. And that needs, I think there is industry in Iran for the drip irrigation components in terms of pipes, drippers, filters, all these things. But for the farmer itself, these are new technologies and he has to learn a lot to make the use of this efficient, and also he has to get loan and assistance to be able to buy. A byproduct of this is that with furrow irrigation you need a lot of water, with drip irrigation you need less. But also you should need less land area to produce the amount of irrigation crop as well. So you need to have land planning, regulation and laws in order to facilitate that happening. For the urban, and these are a source of water because they pump water, they use it. They should return it in a better quality, suitable for irrigation reuse for certain crops, forages and industrial crops, and for also recharge as well. So that can be a source for the water system going to the lake. Industry is something a little bit sensitive because industry water discharge contains certain chemicals, and these chemicals are detrimental to the health of the soil and the plant, and also when they reach the water for human consumption, they become important. So I don't know how complex is the monitoring system of the water. The presentation shows figures and how the plan will cost and that sort of thing. For the urban, I think the solution they proposed is very interesting, that they have to treat the sewage and also use less water for household purposes. So the budget they need, 7 billion, is not big compared to when we back and discuss the opportunities. So I can understand and know the complexity of the situation, and it needs, as our colleague, the president explained, it is an interdisciplinary project. You have all socio-economic and technology contributions. And from our part in Jordan, we have scientists, University of Jordan and other universities who have good experience in dealing with this or similar situation, which they can be interested to be part of the international group of scientists cooperating with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Before I start to have an assessment to previous speeches, I would like, I should introduce myself first. I'm Bani Habib from University of Tehran, and I appreciate hospitality of University of Tabriz. Actually, I am from University of Tabriz. I had my undergraduate study here, and I can see some of my former professors here, and I'm happy I am here. So let's have assessment, but before doing that assessment, I want just to use 1 or 2 minutes to give explanation about the point or opportunity Professor Pino just recommended. About 3 years ago, I had a meeting with the people of Ministry of Mining and Industry in Tehran. So they are getting quotas from another part of Iran, from Kavir Desert. So I asked them if it is possible to get quotas from Urmia Lake area or not. They said they had experiment observation over there, and they did experiment on the samples, and the density is not as high as they are getting from the Kavir Desert land. So for the investment, it is not reasonable. Economically, it's not reasonable to invest on the getting quotas from the Urmia Lake, because we have another sources. We have own dead seas in the Kavir Desert, and it is much reasonable to get the quotas from there. So they don't want to invest to get potash from Urmia Lake. So I have assessment on the third speech. I think I am going to keep the Zarmani speech in the last, because it has a good point to conclude. Kaveh told us the main point is if we are going to ask farmers not to do farming, so we should have the new job. And what is the new job for farmers? This is the main question. If we are going, because the farmer is using the most part of the water, if we are going to ask farmers not to farm, so we should give them another chance, another jobs. This is the point. And Mr. Maleki showed us now we are using about 70% of the water in the basin. So we should reduce it to the 45%. And if we do that, we will have sustainable lake. We can restore the lake. And it needs 1.7 billion cubic meters saving water from farm and agriculture. So the question is how we can save the water from farms. And Professor Fakheri showed us an interesting point, how microclimate changed in Islamic island, and it means the people near to lake feel the problem better than the people in the mountain area because they feel by their eyes, they feel by their own, the temperature is going high and they feel better. So maybe they can cooperate better, I believe. And the point Dr. Zarhami told us, they use the experience of the Boston making forum for water diplomacy for Urmia Lake. It is good news. And they had good conclusion on questions. And I asked Dr. Zarhami, please give us the opportunity to discuss about these questions. Maybe we can have some conclusion how to reply this question. And the last, not the least, Professor Shahidul Islam made a nice point. We cannot have a solution, short solution for the problem we made in the long time. We did this public scene together for a long time, so we cannot solve it in short time. It is manageable, but we need a strategic planning for that. Not for a few projects, especially structural project. Maybe the way is the non-structural, and it needs strategic planning. So this is, I think this is the best point I got from his speech, and I hope in this round table discussion we discuss the questions Dr. Zarhami got from the yesterday forum, and to have some idea to manage the problem, not to solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anjali. Thank you, everyone. We will continue our roundtable till 12:15, and I'm going to ask Professor Shahidul Islam to moderate the roundtable discussion.
So I hope from the morning till now we have generated enough interest to many of you at least have many questions. So to keep it structured, because and then given the time limitation that we have, so what we thought that we would ask some very specific questions, and we will start with our panel of experts internationally who are visiting us here. So with that group, and then we will open it up for the entire community. So the way we have to do this is that the question for this particular session, that if you look at the agenda, what we say that what will it take to implement Urmia Lake Restoration Plan? What will it take? So that means we are looking for some actionable items. It is not really that I just want to keep on describing the problem. I want to see really what can be done. So this is the question we are posing to all of you to think about this. Then what we would like to do really to ask each of the international panel of experts that they are here. We don't want you to put you on the spot, but I think we would benefit from your experience and wisdom. So for each of you to take maybe about 3 minutes, and I have the list from Mahadi, hopefully I have the full list, and we'll start with that. But with the very specific 3 questions I'm posing to the international panel of experts. So the way I'm thinking about this, please feel free to change it if you would like to. Given your experience, and many of you have like 40, 50 years of experience, so from your experience, what have you seen or done anywhere in the world that you thought worked very well or did not work with a particular context that can be applicable to Urmia Lake? It does not have to be really a lake problem. You may have a situation where you have done a problem with a transboundary water problem, there was a problem with livelihood problem. Like many farmers were out of job, they were given a different job, and they were given that different job differently. So this is the type of questions we will be posing. So with that really, so each of you will have about 3 to 4 minutes, so please try to restrict to that, and Hojjat will time it and try to basically keep it as on time. So we will ask with Dr. Yusuf Messian Mani. Sorry that basically I messed up your last name. So we'll start with Yusuf with those 3 questions. So give us your idea really, if you have seen something, and maybe you will be the lead example so that everybody can follow.
Thank you very much. Actually, in our experience in these things, we have the similar lake in Syria is north, south from Aleppo, is north from Syria, and this lake is Jabul Lake. It is Ramsar, this wetland, and it is from UNESCO's register. And we have the same problem in the drought period. We have the water is very, very low level. But the solution in this thing was very complicated. We have to make integrated management between the water resources, agriculture, and farmer. Another example was also in the same in Jordan, Azraq Lake, and I was aboard there in this lake, and they have some options to link the farmer to workings, another income from ecotourism. They have there some buildings from ecotourism, and they have an additional income for the farmers. I think it is a good idea to make here in our, we were yesterday in the lake, and you have a very beautiful landscape, and maybe you can this idea to make ecotourism and for the additional income for the farmer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next we go to Dr. Harry Harder. So if you can spend maybe 30 seconds telling where you are from, then what your affiliations are, that will be good. Thank you.
One is how the government, there is some in Indonesia, isn't there? Just to show you in Indonesia, who is the, in Indonesia there are 2 or more than institute that responsible for the lake. So this is the problem in our research. So I hope that this is not in Iran, in Tabriz or in Urmia. So should be there is one authority to tackle this problem. The second thing is how to ask the participation of the public and to give the public understand what's happened. The scientists should make some, I don't know, how to bridge the science, the technology to the people. So the people should understand what's happened with the lake and what's happened with the process, etc. So it needs of course, it needs a scientific and technological aspect, but should be transferring easily to the people. I think this is my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So this is going very well in terms of our timing. So our next one that I have on the list is Dr. Abdullah Aksel.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so please.
Good morning, everyone.
So give introduction about you and then the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Abdullah Aksel. I come from Istanbul Technical University. I'm a hydrologist with a background from civil engineering. So the problem, as you summarized very well, can be divided into 2 different ways: quantitative problem and qualitative problem. So first, I think we should solve the quantitative problem. So we need water. The quality can be a secondary problem at the moment. But of course, once we set the quantity there, then quality should be, of course, discussed. So the problem, I think, can be solved by looking at simply the history of the lake. And history is hidden in the data. So when we put the data into the desk, we can see what is the problem. And we have already seen this problem in the morning session speeches. So the problem is already there, the illness is already there, so it has already been diagnosed. It may not be a curable one at the moment, a manageable one, but I believe that it can be converted even a curable illness or disease in a very short period of time. One problem that should not be forgotten, I know that there are many national level authorities who are dealing with the problem of Lake Urmia. Before an international cooperation, I believe that first in Iran, there should be a national level cooperation, a well-established cooperation on Urmia Lake. So please, you first come together very well, then you can ask an international cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is wonderful. So let me just share one example with you from a very different part of the world. Why this idea of quantitative information at a very simple level is very important. If you think about the Nile Basin is probably one of the most contentious basins in the world. So there is a significant fight going on between Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan and South Sudan. So what is the fight? The fight is that in 1911, British gave the right to Egypt to use 56 billion cubic meter of water. And about 16 to Sudan and about 11 will evaporate. There are 14 other countries right now in that region. They did not exist because at that time Ethiopia did not exist, Eritrea did not exist because those are all under colonies. Now in 2016 there is a serious fight with this. Ethiopia thinks that why should Egypt get 56? Who is British to give them water? Now if you think about actually amount of rainfall that falls in the Nile Basin is 2000 billion cubic meter. 2000 billion cubic meter. And our fight is for 56. So this is what we are looking for the 18th camel. I made the same argument with Egyptian and Ethiopian and Sudanese that look, you're fighting for 56, you really have 2000 billion cubic meter. This is exactly what I think Dr. Akshay was telling to say that look, there are information that is available in the data. Yesterday we talked about this little bit, but we did not come to a consensus really. What is the even water balance for the Urmia Lake? Like how much water is coming in? There are conflicting data, there are evaporation data, there are runoff data, but these are not making sense. But I'm sure if a graduate student, a master's or a PhD student sits down for 2 months, collect all the information, can do this. That would be first place to start. So with that, our next one would be Dr. Firoz Ahmed. So Dr. Firoz Ahmed, please.
I'm Firoz Ahmed from Bangladesh. I am Vice Chancellor of one of the largest private university. Before that, I was Dean of Engineering for Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. Well, we heard this problem, and some of the causes of the problems are identified. But still, I need some of the information that's very important to see that what we can share or what we can end up at the say sharing within us. Here, the climate change is one of the problem, but still we don't know actually. I think there are quite a large number of global modeling available. Where what is the temperature? What is the change in temperature? Then rainfall or humidity in the area. I think it is known. This aspect has not yet been seen because this is the main source or the cause of the maybe drying of the lake. So that data has to be collected and see that what we have there. Then also agricultural use, it's not quite clear that agriculture how affected. It is extracting some fresh water probably, which otherwise would have been discharged in the lake. But that thing is not very clear, of course. How much it have been discharging earlier and what is the situation now. This second case, and then the other say the physical intervention, the construction of the bridge and all these things. But I don't find that it has got much impact on that. Since the water is not free flowing in the lake, probably the underground water is flowing within the lake. And for taking all these aspects, you should maybe construct a complete sorts of water balance system of the lake. Then probably you can see that how many camel you have and how you can distribute it. But in distribution, of course, all of the world, it is quite known that the water for life take the first, then goes for water for food security, that means agriculture, and then water for ecology and so on. So that aspect has to be taken into mind for distribution of the available water that we have for the lake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this, I think, raises some very interesting questions in terms of really water for what. So water for what, as Dr. Ahmed was trying to summarize it, water for life, water for security, water for food. These are very important considerations. So when we say that we are pragmatic, that pragmatism really is not out of principles. So I just simply cannot decide really. So I have a professor really at Tufts, I'll not give the name, but so his suggestion would be that kill half the people of the globe, you have no problem with water. Yeah, it's a solution.
That's one solution.
It's one solution, but it is not principle. It may be pragmatic also. So we have to be careful really when we do these type of things, that we need to be pragmatic with some very guiding principle. Like, for example, the issue of sustainability, issue of equity, those should come into the picture before we come into actions. So the next one that I'll go to Sajjad Ahmed, so please share some of your wisdom, perhaps from the US or from Pakistan or from any other places.
Yes, my name is Sajjad Ahmed. I'm originally from Pakistan and currently professor in University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So a few examples come to mind. In South Florida, Everglades restoration is a huge problem. And there's a lake in the middle of that, Lake Okeechobee. And it's a very complex problem, but one major issue going on was that there was agriculture around lake and it was contributing huge amount of nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, which was not helping with the restoration efforts. So the local water management agency, South Florida Water Management District, after trying many things, they ended up buying the land from farmers and just put it under natural use. So it was resource intensive, it was expensive to buy, but they had the ability to do it and it did work. So second example comes to mind, my current hometown, Las Vegas. So they have a very limited surface water supply source for drinking water purposes. That water comes from Colorado River and it's distributed among 7 basin states. So under agreement, they have a very fixed amount they can draw. So about 15 years ago, in 2000, they were practically withdrawing close to 95 to 100% of their share, and population was 1.2 million at that time. So they went into very aggressive conservation plan. Many things were implemented, started with building regulations. You cannot have a front yard which has green grass. They came up with a replacement scheme where if you replace your green grass with synthetic grass, government will pay you some money per square foot, low flush toilets, many changes were implemented. So they ended up actually reducing per capita use by 40%, very impressive accomplishment. But what happened next was even more interesting. So what they ended up doing with that saving was actually fueling more growth. So today we have 2 million people living there. We are still close to using 95 to 100% of our allocation. So if you end up saving some water for lake from agriculture use, make sure that it's protected and it actually goes to lake, not ends up fueling more agriculture practices. And third example, if I have time, I can add third example from Pakistan. So there is this Kinjar Lake. It's a national lake which used to supply water to largest city in Pakistan, Karachi. And of course, with time, there was not enough water in the lake to supply the large city, and water level was declining. So an engineering solution was brought up that let's bring some water to this lake. So they connected it to Indus River with the canal and started supplying water. So it solved the problem for a while, but as we can expect down the road, new problems came up. So what actually was going on...
What was the name of lake?
Kinjar. So what was going on was that there are a lot of industries along Indus River in Lower Sindh which are discharging water without treatment. And that poor quality water through that canal ends up in the lake. So we ended up actually changing the physical, biological and chemical parameters of the lake. Now we have heavy metals in there and a host of other issues. We changed the ecology of the lake and its intended purposes. So that's an example where some of the fixes which may work in the short term may backfire in the long term.
Well, wonderful suggestion. This is probably part of the wisdom of the crowd. So I think although we may sometimes discount this idea of round table, and I'll tell you why I say this. Because I have worked on both South Florida and Las Vegas, and also I was thinking about Urmia. I have never thought about the way Sajjad thought about this. Because if you look at the South Florida Water Management District problem, this is a multi-billion-dollar problem that US has. And it's a serious problem. It's very similar to here. So they decided really in about 40, 50 years ago that no water should go to the sea. Essentially, we will use all water, essentially so that nothing goes to the sea. That was very good at that time. It was a very pragmatic engineering solution. But it essentially destroyed the entire ecosystem. So now they're trying to restore the ecosystem as a national priority. This is a national project that US is doing for last several years, multi-billion-dollar project. So we can learn a few things from there. And same story with Las Vegas here. Las Vegas is also probably one of the largest or one of the fastest growing cities anywhere in the world. And they have created serious problem for the lake mead, and they have addressed this in a very systematic way. And because the Las Vegas, the czar for water is a lady, and we know her very well as part of our water diplomacy network. So they have created some very inventive solution. What would be very useful for us is that not we can just take Las Vegas and bring it to Urmia. That will not work. What will work though, I think, is some of the things they have done there, how can they be customized for the solution in Urmia Lake? There is a tendency that for us to take solution that worked in a particular Western society and then bring it to developing country or somewhere else. It does not work. So we need to basically be very pragmatic about this. I can say that because I have home in both places. I come from a developing country and I live in a developed country right now. It is a very difficult thing just to take something that worked in Florida will work in Urmia Lake. I can tell you, although I do not make these type of statements, but in this case I said no, it will not work. If you want to do exactly what they're doing, you can learn what has been done in South Florida and bring it here and customize it here. Unless that customization is done, this wholesale solution does not work. Wholesale solution only work for fever. For the problem, those are complex, you need a much more targeted solution, understand the depth of the problem. Okay, so with that we will go to our next speaker, Mohammad Ashraf from Pakistan.
Thank you very much. My name is Mohammad Ashraf. I am from Pakistan and working as a chairman of Pakistan Council of Research and Water Resources. As a number of our colleagues have mentioned about the processes, first important process is the prevention. As we usually say that prevention is better than the cure. The next process, as has also been mentioned, is the assessment. The third is the restoration. And the fourth one is the management. A huge number of sediment was coming into it. And because of the sediment, as you know that sediment carries a huge, along with it nutrients as well, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus. And the eutrophication was becoming a major phenomenon. That was actually reducing the capacity of the lake and the reservoir. And what we did, we actually studied the whole water balance of the watershed area and the lake. And this report is also available. It was done with the technical and financial support of the CARDA. It is available the report is available at the CARDA website. And what we did, we first studied the complete water balance and also the salt balance. Salt balance are also need to be studied. And then a great knowledge has been developed outlined in the books. That needs to be transformed into action. And what we did, we adopted small and simple technologies for sediment controls with the proper dicing. Then we introduced the very small and simple loose-form structures to control the sediments, and also we introduced the crop. Such kind of issues cannot be resolved by single approach. You have to adopt all approaches, including the engineering approach, biological approach, and socio-economical approach. By integrating all these three approaches and capacity building of the stakeholders. When we say the stakeholders, these are basically four kinds of stakeholders we are focusing on it. Number one is the community farmers, who are really the beneficiaries. The other one is agriculture service providers, who actually provide services to the community. And then the professional, who actually transform knowledge into action and who disseminate knowledge to the agriculture service provider and to the farmers. And fourth one, the most important one, is the policy makers, who have to take certain action, certain policy decision to restore the situation or to manage the situation. So simple and super technologies are available, which actually need to be made available to the farmer with building their capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I think this idea of I think it may be a little bit provocative, but let me pose this anyway. See, this idea of stakeholder participation is really very big now. If you look at the Western world, to the developing world, to World Bank, everybody will tell you that stakeholder participation is very important. No question, it is extremely important. But what Dr. Ashraf was trying to basically emphasize is that the capacity building of stakeholder is also very critical. We just simply, particularly in the developing world, stakeholder participation is almost taken as a lip service. Yes, we have to talk to them. Then we have not heard really what they say. Or we have already decided what we want and then basically brought in few people and I tell them that, look, this is what we want to do and let's do it. This is not an effective stakeholder participation. This is the bottom level of stakeholder participation. Stakeholder must have stake in the game. You can only have stake in the game really when you are directly affected. If I am a farmer really in Urmia Lake, I have a stake in the game. Now, me as an outsider, as a faculty at Tufts University, I have no stake really. So I may say that, yeah, I understand stakeholder, but this is really not very authentic. So we need to find out really who are the stakeholders, are they even capable? Capable in terms of their capacity building so that they can ask the right questions. That is very critical really when we talk about stakeholder participation. So with that I will go to Dr. Manzoor Samare, please.
Thank you. My name is Manzoor Hussain Sumro. I'm not a water expert. I'm not an engineer. But I have worked with the communities, particularly the farming communities, looking at some of the conflicts. And I was pleased when Professor Shafiq, you spoke about actually this diplomatic initiative and by bringing people on board. For me, and by the way, I am a president of the Economic Cooperation Organization Science Foundation. This is a 10 countries intergovernmental organization. The parent organization ECO or ECO is secretariat in Tehran, but the Eco Science Foundation is based in Islamabad, Pakistan. For me, I think the people are central to the issue. You said stakeholders, but I think overall, probably what I have heard so far, and it's the farming community plus the environmentalist or the environmental parameters that are considered around the Urmia Lake. So sharing all the scientific data with those communities, especially the farmers, and actually learning through the experiential methods to work through with the farming communities for a period of time and working the economics of using the water and other resources from Urmia Lake, but through the participatory method. And I had the opportunity of leading a program. You would have heard the farmer field school approach, whereby the farming community is actually, like a scientist goes through all the processes, looking at the data and then coming to a consensus decision, so that afterwards all the stakeholders, all the farming community, of course the policymakers should also be engaged. They all own the decisions, and therefore they themselves protect. Urmia to me looks like a golden goose, which is supporting the ecology, which is supporting the farmers. But if it is not there, everybody loses. So that's my point of view, that they should be central, and then there can be capacity building and so on, but participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just before that, what was the name of project? Farmers School?
So it's called the Farmer Field School. Farmer Field Schools approach. World Bank did have criticism on that, but they said that it takes long time, this and that. But I can tell you that the program that I was associated with, it finished in 2004. People are still continuing with the same approach. Not only they solved the issues of their crops and the water, but also some of the other social issues and the rural development issues were sorted out, because the people can come together and develop consensus, which I think traditionally in our regions we have this panchayat system and all that, that sitting together, talking over things, is everybody's interest, and agree upon that. Thank you.
No, this is very powerful. I think the reason I think it's very powerful is that these are local examples, those are extremely effective. See, if you remember really, even when I started my talk, I said, we are really not interested in theoretical solutions. This idea of panchayat really is very dominant in South Asia. But if you go to Africa, it has a very different connotations. So let me share one story. This is a story that is I learned from Africa. In Africa, there are tribes. And tribes, so these are small tribes. So when tribes, for example, they have a conflict within the family, you know what they do? They essentially on a moonlit night sit down in front of their house and then keep talking, with only condition that you have to keep talking before it is resolved. Even if you have to fight it out, you cannot leave the space. If it takes 3 days, it is 3 days. If it takes 2 hours, it's 2 hours, but you must resolve that conflict. This is an extremely powerful way to develop trust and relationship. So that is exactly what needs to happen really here. We just cannot keep talking about, yeah, we will involve stakeholders and bringing them to a table and then talk and then they go home, done. This is not the way it works, and precisely for that reason, really stakeholder participation, although has been tried for many years, there are a lot of problems with this because it is used as a lip service. We need to find out, like for example, this idea of this farmer school is very similar to the one that is done in the US called Agriculture Extension Services. What they do really is that you have university creates all kinds of knowledge which is primarily not very useful, because I have no idea really about farming. I do research. That research cannot get translated to farmer unless somebody is in between. That in between is the Agriculture Extension Services. They will take the research from the university, make it a guideline that this is the amount of fertilizer you need to put in to get this amount of rice if your rainfall is this. Then a farmer can use it. This is exactly what the type of actionable knowledge that we want. So with that, I'll go to Dr. Fakri Hassan really to share his ideas and thoughts really. And one thing I must emphasize really here, the group is so diverse really, it is really extremely beneficial to get multiple viewpoints, and then we can come up with something that is basically everybody can learn and also can implement in an effective way.
And I agree with you that we need pragmatic solutions, but as you also mentioned, pragmatic solutions have to be based on principles, and I think we have to spell out that these these are ethical principles in the first place. I'm also very pleased that almost everyone now recognizes the role of society, given that most of us did not begin as sociologists or anthropologists. I started as a geologist and then anthropology, and that added a great deal to my understanding of these issues. I worked with UNESCO for almost more than 20 years when there was the issue of water wars. We developed some documents on how we can turn conflicts into cooperation, on ethics, and on some practical ways by which this cooperation can be achieved. I think one of clearly it's a complex problem. Many problems are complex, but that does not mean that we should not act in complex problems. I think we also work under conditions of uncertainty, but at least in these conditions we have to know the states of the outcomes of certain actions and the probabilities of these certain actions and the payoffs. And my impression is that it's we have a problem of management more than anything else. People talk about lack of data, people talk about opportunities, people talk about the government, people talk about international cooperation, but what is the managerial framework for all of us? Seeing that each of us with their enthusiasm follow their discipline or the group they're working in. And if we talk about stakeholders, I don't think that only the farmers, of course they are the center of the image because they are the one affected, but the solutions will have to come from professionals, from international community, and we recognize that when we talk about it. So it is not that you will be physically affected by the shortage of water, but you are concerned about the environment, you become a stakeholder, and so forth. So I think this is an issue that highlights, first of all, the need for maybe on the local scale, a cooperative that involves the local stakeholders, whether they are working in economy, industry, whatever. And part of that would be the capacity building, would be the technical assistance from extension. So you have an integrated cooperative that deals with the biggest issues. And it would provide information to the local stakeholders, help them monitor what's going on, and they would then benefit from a national commission, if not on this particular case, on similar cases dealing with, which is not just related to the Ministry of Irrigation or Water, but this commission would include the stakeholders in the sense of the economists, the sociologists, the planners, project managers, and so forth. Their task would be to bring this information together, not in terms of the ecology of the lake only, or the problems that exist maybe in terms of climate change, but to try to come up with feasible solutions. I like the word feasible solution because it comes from mathematics. When you have a variety of solutions, some of them are feasible because you have to define the constraints. The constraints may be economical, maybe social, but you have to define these constraints before you are able to talk about the feasible solution. Within the domain of feasible solutions, you have optimal solutions, and usually not perfect solutions, optimal solutions, suboptimal solutions. Here comes the issue of urgency, which would make you take some actions that are suboptimal, but they begin the process of going to optimality. So the issue here is, if we need to go down now to some of the issues that were discussed in a technical manner, the issue of climate change is the cause, or because we should solve that given the information that we have, or irrigation. Is it climate change? I personally cannot be certain, because the record that you have is only 100 years. And I know from my work on the Nile and climate change is that we have episodes that are between 30 and 60 years. So what you see here may be just a normal pattern of climatic variability, not climate change. But it could be complicated by climate change, but this is uncertain. No matter what, you are facing a problem because clearly of irrigation. It seems to me that's the culprit in this particular case. So, and that's certain, given the data that we have. So therefore, the attention has to be focused on irrigation, and then you will deal with two issues, increasing supply, bringing water, or conservation. And I think there is no alternative to conservation, regardless of what, because even if you bring water, in the future be more population, more activities, and that is the endemic problem. So the solution has to be conservation in the sense of crop pattern, drip irrigation, and so on. With that comes new technologies. These new technologies, solar energy, pipes, etc., can become the basis of rural projects, of not industrialization or producing something industrial in the sense we know industrial goods, but also helping farmers. So you go from the level of subsistence farming or limited farming to industrialized farming, which of course brings more money if you look properly at the crops that take less water and recycle the water, all these issues. That's, I think, the long-term and short-term solution for this problem. Let me go back to one issue that I started with, which is that of the importance of society and the importance of ethics. Clearly, and I'm delighted that I'm hearing this more and more, that people are realizing that the solution is actually on the basis of the participation of people and communities. We make the problem, and we are the ones who can solve the problem. Nobody else can solve it. At the same time, and that may not be easy to handle, but it had to be opened up. The issue of who decides and what are the ethical principles. We've heard the issue of water for life, water for food security, water for ecology, etc. But again, these need to be integrated in a way that can gain consensus by the local communities and can guide the planners as well. So the issue of ethics and whether it's situational ethics or utilitarian ethics has to be taken into consideration, particularly because when we are dealing with societies where we have a gap in power, a gap in wealth, a gap in education, it seems that it becomes very important to look at equity as a basis for empowerment and as a basis for rectifying the situation for the benefit of everyone in the long run, because we already see that in the West there are problems that have resulted from this gap that even exists there. But in our societies, we are also beginning to see a great deal of movements that are antisocial and anti-societal, and that resides, I think, in equity at the very end. So water problem has to be related to the problem of fighting poverty and inequity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that brings us to the close of our international panel of experts. I hope we have not missed anyone.
No.
We have not missed, okay.
Everybody's international, but...
Yeah, I think you're right. So everybody's international, but I think these are international panel of experts with wisdom.
We invited them.
Yeah, we invited them too. So I think, thank you for sharing this wisdom for us, and I think as Dr. Fakhri Hassan very nicely summarized, the key issue here is that really not that we have many problems. So for example, he gave you two ideas, that climate change is important, irrigation is important, but both are uncertain, but both are not at the same level of uncertainty. We know really, I can probably spend next 20 years doing research on climate change, may not still come to any consensus. But I do know that we are using most of the water in irrigation. So that is a correct intervention point right now. We need to understand what the correct intervention point is. Yes, I think we should spend some money doing climate change research, but that is not the particular intervention point. Even if I say that climate change is a problem, Urmia Lake cannot do much about climate change. We have somewhat basically big 180 countries came together in Paris a few weeks ago to come up with this COP21. So let them figure out what climate change will do for the world, and we are much interested in Urmia Lake problem. That is very critical to understand the scale of the problem. Once we do that, then I think we are in a good shape. So in this case, I would just take 1 minute and then pass it on to Mazif to run for the group. in any of these problems, you need I call this 3P. 3P has to come into convergence. First one is the identification of the problem. So identification of the problem is that, yeah, we understand that there is a problem with the Urmia lake. Next one is the prescription. We need to have some prescription that this is what we want to do. Then we have to find out politicians that they are interested in this. Unless we bring them in, we may come up with all kinds of brilliant solutions. If politicians are not interested, we may get very frustrated very quickly. Look, we gave you the solutions, you didn't do anything. It did not align with the politicians' interest. We need to figure out, so right now, everybody is talking about this Urmia lake restoration problem. I'm sure the president of Iran doesn't know exactly what the details are. But he knows that this is important, really, otherwise he'll get difficult time getting elected. So we need to make it important for him that, look, I think for you, look, we can show you in 2 years, Urmia lake has gained another half a meter of water. Then it is tangible. He can show that, look, I have done it, and next, give me another election year, I'll do another one for you. This is the way these problems, prescription and politician has to come into convergence. If that happens, then only solution will work. Otherwise, we can come up with solution that will not work. Right now, then what we want to do is we'll open it up for the entire group to basically raise hands. On I don't know how Mahdi wants to run it, so I'll let Mahdi.
Thank you so much, Shafiq, and thank you, panelists. As already said, we had last night a meeting with the 50 stakeholders, and the main question that we arise there is that reaching similar experiences on job creation for the farmers. The farmers, we have like 500,000 farmers around the lake, and if we cut the 40% of the water going to the irrigation, we have 3 solutions. Reduce the number of farmers, reduce the area of farming, or changing the irrigation type or crop change. But the last one needs some more money and takes more long time. Then we need international experiences on how we could easily find new jobs for the farmers that they are living. Otherwise, just by pushing the farmers to stop the wells and stopping the pumping, it is not a social solution for the ecotourism. Then we have just like 15 minutes, and if from the panelists or other audience, and that we really apologize for the people standing at the end. Dr. Kuzekonani kindly provided the big salon for us for the next session that will be in the 2 p.m. and we will be there and have a seat for everybody. But now we have 15 minutes, which is very valuable for us. And after your comments, we will summarize that Dr. Nasser Agh is also from Urmia University, is doing well, writing a report for us. We will provide it in the local language for the decision makers. Then now we come back to you, and if you have any comment, please raise your hand and describe your affiliation. Okay? You already spoke with you, and let's still come back to Hijazi. Yes? Yes.
I'm Nasser Mahna from University of Tabriz. I'm not actually a water specialist, I'm actually in biotechnology. But I've been in such sessions, a few until now, and I've noticed some kind of, I would agree with that with Professor Hassan that we can use some new technologies such as biotechnology to allocate the same number or a smaller number of camels for agriculture section and then get the same benefits and even more through biotechnology and using new technologies in agriculture sector like moving from fields to greenhouses, and we can the same number of farmers working in the sector but getting the same money and the same outcome and with little amount of water being consumed. I mean, we can save, we can save a lot of water in this way, and with modernizing agriculture and changing systems and applying the new systems, modern systems. Thank you.
Okay. The first, Dr. Fasihi from Julia, please.
Thank you, Dr. Zarwan. I'm Mehdi Fassi from Delta University of Technology. Actually, I'm doing philosophy related to water, and as I talked with Shafik last month about the pragmatic solutions, I'm still wondering to know how we can manufacture pragmatic engineering, because I previously done a top project in engineering related to water since 15 years ago, and I was previously a utilitarian engineer. I just knew benefit-cost ratio. So, because here the panelists and the other people are mostly from the universities, and I just want to focus on the issue of manufacturing of pragmatic engineering instead of utilitarian engineering. What I mean is we are doing water engineering in the University of Tabriz, in the Isfahan University of Technology, and other places. And as the Urmia Lake issue is becoming a university center focus issue, I'm very happy that you see this is a real university focus issue right now. But what we need is focusing as a, I don't know if it is a long term or mid term or short term, but we need to focus to, let's say, manufacture pragmatic engineering. If what I saw this morning in the presentation, that was absolutely utilitarian view. So we saw the Urmia Lake as a system, not as a network. So I think that's very important to my colleagues from university see that.
Thank you so much. Dr. Al?
Yeah.
Dr. Mahdi, please turn off your...
All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk. I think a number of data are to be already clear because some of the data provided are not very accurate. As for example, the salinity in the summer in Lake Urmia increases up to about 450 grams per liter. So it is highly supersaturated water during that time. And another issue is that the increase in water level during the rainy seasons, during the winter and early spring, it is natural. It happens every year. It is not only this year. It is increased by half a meter. It happens every year. Since the last 20 years, it has been happening. But one very clear fact and very important fact that has been forgotten about Lake Urmia is the great changes in the lake geomorphology. And now, because of the sedimentation of more than 6 billion cubic meters of salt in the bottom and lots of river minerals in the water, the capacity of the Lake Urmia has reduced a lot. It doesn't have capacity anymore for 14 or 15 billion cubic meter water. So therefore, a little water covers the whole surface and immediately dries up in the early months of the summer. So evaporation based on the water volume, it has increased a lot because water volume is less, but it increases. It spreads over in a very vast area. So now, for example, they've been telling that they have released maybe 120 million cubic meter water only, but it has covered the area of the lake has increased by 2.5 times. So that means the area has no capacity. If they release, for example, 4 billion cubic meter water to the lake now, I think it will cover whole surface of the lake. So that means there is no capacity. And one more issue is that the salt sediment in deep areas of the lake is so thick and very hard
and that does not get dissolved at all. All the time, the water over on the salt sediment in deep areas, it is super saturated. It never gets below the saturation, and therefore there is no dissolving of the salt in that area. So these are all very important issues that should be considered if you want to define a real diplomacy for water to save the Lake Urmia.
Thank you. And the next one, Dr. Nazemi, thank you.
I am Amir Hussein Nazmi from the University of Tabriz. I enjoyed the presentations of speakers of this session, especially the presentation of Professor Shafi. I saw a picture in your presentation about the RLC. It seems to me optimistic about the restoration of the RLC. Still, we need the experience of restoration of lakes face drying up like RLC. In many sessions, general issues are discussed, but we still need a real issue like RLC issue, and we don't know about the short-term and long-term strategies that they used for the restoration of RLC. That's very important for us.
You asked one time.
Thank you very much. We need to do agricultural water management. It means not reducing using the water, but reducing the desire to use the water. That's the point. So how we can encourage people to use, to reduce the water, agricultural water, irrigation. So the answer to questions that Zanami told us is yes to all three of questions. But the most important point is that the solution is not in the Urmia Lake, it's out of the Urmia Lake. Yesterday we went to Tabriz Bazaar. What does it mean? Tabriz was the place for trade and business for a long time. So what is the relation to the Urmia Lake? You know, these people used to do business. If we move people to business, they will use less water. Everyone in every 1,000 people working in service sector use like one farmer. So with the water of the water we use one farmer, we can give job to 2,000 people in service sector. What is the service sector? It's business, it is ecotourism, it's everything. And another point, the Tabriz is famous for industry. In industry, the people use at 100% for job, use just like one farmer. So if we move people from farming to the industry and to the business, we will use less water. We shouldn't produce everything by ourselves. I told Dr. Kalanta, while we are producing watermelon in this basin, we can buy it from Afghanistan. They are selling us some agricultural products. They are not useful, but I think watermelon is much useful, so we can buy it from them. We don't have to produce everything, every agricultural product in this area. So the solution is not maybe in agriculture, just transfer people to jobs in industry and in service sector. Thank you very much.
one or two more questions if anybody interested. Yes, Somro.
Thank you. I think the discussion, although we will sum up in the end, but so far the discussion I think is such that to me it perhaps calls for what would be called an area development program, which takes care of not just one sector, and as he said that problem might be outside the lake, but I think there is scientific evidence that there is some problem within the lake which needs some help, but a lot around the cultural, historical background of this region, this area, and then developing an area development program with ecology, agriculture, industry, businesses, education, jobs, youth engagement, all this in focus, and that can be worked out. There are agencies, there are examples also.
Thank you. Mohammed Ashraf, please.
Dr. Nadur has rightly mentioned that this is not on, we actually have to take the holistic approach. It is not only the lake itself, but its whole catchment area, watershed area, where actually water comes to the lake. We have to take a holistic and integrated approach to manage the resources.
Yeah, I think we don't want to be between us and the lunch because it's almost 12:30, so we were supposed to be done by 12:15. So I'll just take 2 minutes to summarize. I'll start with something that Mahdi Fassi mentioned, that how do you manufacture? I did not use the word manufacture, maybe create. If we start manufacturing engineers, we will be in trouble.
Sorry for the interruption. It's like manufacturing water.
That is good. So I think what he was suggesting is that how do you essentially create pragmatic engineer? And this is very important in the sense that he was with us really last summer. We ran something called Water Diplomacy Workshop. This is geared towards mid-level professionals because we are, say, I think I am very sensitive to my own place at the university. When we do research, we really don't have much relationship with the real world. So we do all kinds of things that we think it will work really, and we don't understand exactly how it works on the ground. So to bridge that gap, we have created something we call Water Diplomacy Workshop. So we invite people from around the world, and we've been doing it for 6 years now. So far over like about 150 people from 50 different countries participated. They go to Boston and then spend about a week with us. And Mehdi did it last year, so he got some of these clues from there. So the idea there is that what can be done on the ground. It is not only pragmatism. I think pragmatism has a very bad name because pragmatism, the example that I was given, kill 3.5 billion people, you have a solution. Or I can give you even more appropriate solution. There is no shortage of water. There are a lot of water in the sea. I can just become very brilliant engineer, create an optimal way to desal the water. So as a result, I will never have a problem with water, not 7 billion, within 14 billion people. Well, most of the water is salty. So if somehow I can make it fresh, then I can do this. But there are serious problems with this. There are problems with energy, problem of sustainability, problem of environmental problem. So this cannot be taken that easily. So we need to be careful really when we become pragmatic. It needs to be rooted in certain principles. But Dr. Fakhri Hassan was saying that, look, I think these are very serious ethical and values questions. So that means our pragmatism must be rooted in certain set of basic principles. So the example that I give really, for example, the smallest book that I have on my bookshelf is US Constitution. It's only about 20 pages. It's a very thin book. There are 9 Supreme Court judges to interpret that book. It is very similar to the Quran. Quran is a book of guidance. That book is not really a prescription. You have to derive prescription from there. The question basically, how do we derive this prescription? That is where basically the pragmatism comes with principles. The principles in water that we have come to in agreement, there are 2. One is the issue of equity and the issue of sustainability. Then you can say, okay, what do you mean? No, I don't know what it means. It may mean very different for Urmia Lake than if I go to slum in Bangladesh. So the equity and sustainability may have different meaning. That needs to be decided by the people who are affected by it. That means the stakeholders and the people affected by the particular problem must define what that equity and sustainability. If you tell me that I have a definition of sustainability that is universal, I said you are joking, you have no idea what you're talking about. Because usually it is said that I will try to keep the environment for my next generation. Very nice. It cannot be actionable. What does it mean? Does it mean that I do not start buying cars? Does it mean that I start using less water? Does it mean that basically I eat less food? All kinds of things will come. That means I have to contextualize it for the particular problem, what sustainability means. If we can do that, I think there will be in a good shape. What we would encourage you to do really between now and the lunch and then for next 1.5 hours is to think about these issues so that we can summarize to something little bit more concrete that we can pursue over next few years. So we will meet again.
Yes, in 12:10, 14:10. Okay, thank you so much for everybody for coming today here, and Ojat, let me to finalize the session. Yes, and there are some buses waiting outside here for us, and we are going to the University Mosque. That this is also a very beautiful building, and then we will have a lunch, then come back to here, and we will try to be here like 2 p.m. to up to 10 p.m. right here. And the question for us in the next session that the Sumro and Dr. Jalal Akhtari will summarize and start the session, that will be what are international experiences for Urmia Lake restoration, and we will go to find some short and long-term alternative option and restoration solutions. But however, I again emphasize on the diplomacy. In the lunch and in the way to going to the lunch, we invite the international panelists to help and to give a guidance for our students. And they like to be with you to get points how they can advise their thesis, rather than artificial thesis, to put them to more practical thesis and to guide their thesis to real problems of the international Muslim community. And then thank you so much, and in Arabic, Salam Alaikum, and see you after the lunch right here.
Can we leave the material somewhere?